If you have been in a toxic relationship, you have done amazing and courageous things just to get to where you are, to survive it, and then to have the courage to go and divorce this person when you know what you're likely facing. That takes a huge amount of courage. If you can, think of your divorce as a partnership in a business that is dividing. If you can, and you cannot ever remove the emotions from divorce decisions. A person who has been high conflict or toxic or unhealthy as a partner is suddenly going to change and become fair and giving and willing to listen to your concerns. Just if they all of a sudden start becoming very reasonable, really look at what you're proposing, because you probably are not asking for everything that you're entitled to. I really do everything I could have, or did I just push the easy button to get out of this relationship? And that's sometimes where I think you get into the overgiving in the mediation. I'm trying to compensate for what I've done to you, and so here you go. Here's an extra whatever at the table. The whole family court system is based on people in conflict. And so if you're not in conflict right now, this is the perfect time to sit down with your partner and start saying, this is what we want our divorce to look like. We don't want to be $200,000 each in debt. Let's conserve that money.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Just Separate podcast. I'm Karen Oman, a thanatologist, grief counselor, divorce strategist, and co-author of the Just Separated workbook. I help people navigate the emotional, legal, and practical challenges of divorce, including high conflict and narcissist relationships. Each week, I am joined by expert guests to share guidance, tools, and strategies so you can move forward with clarity, confidence, and resilience. Follow Just Separated and join us as we explore the many layers of divorce. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Hi, welcome to the Just Separate podcast. I'm your host, Karen Oman, co-founder of Divorce Workshop. Today, we're going to be talking about costly divorce mistakes you can't afford to make, and our expert guest today is Mardi Winder. Mardi has over 30 years of experience assisting high-achieving individuals in navigating the challenges of high conflict, complex, and high-asset divorce. She is an international speaker, best-selling author, and certified trained focused on helping people improve their conflict resolution strategies, communication skills, and build resilience, even in challenging times. Mardi is an ICF ACC and a BCC executive and leadership coach, a credentialed distinguished mediator in Texas, a certified divorce transition coach, a certified high conflict divorce coach, and a certified divorce specialist. She believes that divorce does not have to define or break you. Rather, it can allow you to transform to the next chapter of your amazing life on your terms and in alignment with your values. Welcome, Mardi, to the Just Separate podcast.
Karen, thank you so much. It's my privilege to be here.
So, Mardi, when someone is just separated, were they suddenly surrounded by people giving them advice, friends say, lawyer up, forgive and forget, and the internet says, take them for everything, or they are definitely narcissists? This is common, right?
Yes.
In your experience, what is the most common piece of good advice? And if you're not only listening, I'm putting up little hands quotes, that is actually a costly mistake for someone who's just trying to find their footing.
I think the first one would be that you need to hire a lawyer immediately. I have amazing people I know who are lawyers, and there are exceptional professionals. But let's face it, the whole family court system is based on people in conflict. And so if you're not in conflict right now, this is the perfect time to sit down with your partner and start saying, this is what we want our divorce to look like. We don't want to be $200,000 each in debt going through this divorce. Let's conserve that money. Let's use it to rebuild our future lives, or take a great vacation, or refund our retirement plans, whatever it is for whatever age you're in. Take our kids let our kids do something special, or put that money aside for their college. I get really frustrated when the first thing people do when there's not a legal issue. So when there isn't abuse of any kind, where the couple is fairly amicable, all it often takes is for a bad attorney to get in there and tell somebody, This is what you need to do. Stop talking to your ex. I really believe that if your attorney gives you that piece of advice, don't talk to your soon to be ex, you need to really question what they're trying to do, because there's nothing wrong with you if it's not unsafe for you to do so, mentally, physically, emotionally. If it's not unsafe for you to do that, why shouldn't you try to negotiate your own dissolution of your marriage? I mean, you are the ones that got together and created this marriage. Aren't you the experts at how perhaps best to dissolve it and to move forward positively? So I think that hiring an attorney right off the bat, if you're not in one of those unsafe situations, is probably the biggest mistake that most people make.
Do you think society's kind of put us up to that though? Like I was talking to a mediator in Florida and she said, well, you can drive by and there's big board signs saying, we in family law, we will fight for you.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if there's that societal thing where it's like, when you get divorced, you need your lawyer up, right? So that
Well,
is probably part of the frustration.
yeah, and I think and here's the reality of this, and this is maybe a hard thing for a person going through divorce to hear, but lawyers have to make money too, right? I mean, I make money as a divorce coach. People make money as therapists. People make money as medical doctors. Everybody makes a living. So if everybody amicably divorces, how does this work? I mean, I think it's a $4 billion industry in the United States, divorce. So there's a big chunk of money hanging out there, and it does. I'm not going to say, again, not good lawyers. Good lawyers don't do this. Unfortunately, just like in every profession, there are those who are open to ramping up the billable hours as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to make sure that the couple is not speaking to each other and that there is a high level of conflict around the whole divorce process. Now, there's very great attorneys, collaborative law attorneys. There are great attorneys that recommend mediation and really work with their clients to resolve their cases in mediation. You can get an attorney like that. They will be an asset to your divorce. And I still believe the more you can get this hammered out between yourselves and then go to the attorney and say, this is what we've agreed on so far, just help us with these 2 or 3 other points we can't figure out, you're going to be so much farther ahead.
Would you recommend that those type of couples that you're talking about, they go to mediation?
Absolutely. I honestly believe so. I am a mediator. I've been a mediator since the 1990s, both in Canada and the United States. And family issues, I think, are ideally suited for mediation because hopefully especially if you've got kids, there needs to be a strong foundation for a good relationship between the couple if you're going to be co-parenting. And let's face it, even if your kids are in their 20s or their 30s or their 40s, you're still going to want to be together at special events, at birthdays, at anniversaries, at milestones in your kids' lives or your grandkids' lives. So they're using that mediation process where you both have a chance to talk about what you need and hopefully get at least what you need, if not a lot of what you want. You're going to be able to sustain that relationship moving forward. And mediation is definitely the way to do that.
Okay, so for both lawyers, you can tell everybody, and I know your answer, but for lawyers as well as mediators, it'd be good to interview or have a consultation with them all.
Absolutely. I typically recommend to my clients, first of all, you can do a lot of due diligence online now. Most attorneys are fairly active on social media, not all attorneys. And it may not be the attorney, it may be the law firm that's actually on social media. But the words that I watch for, I tell my clients to watch for, are words like aggressive. We'll, like you just said, we will fight for your last, for the last cent that you're owed. Well, you may get that cent, but you may have spent $10,000 in legal fees to get that penny. Does it make sense to do it? So take a look at the language that they use. And then also, go on Yelp and go on, like there's many different law sites that review lawyers and get ratings from people. And it depends on which country you're in and what area. So review the lawyer, look at the feedback on social media and on, Google and Yelp and all those things. Just remember, typically the only people that comment on those are the people that really feel that they were wronged or the people that feel that they really did an excellent job. So just because there's a lot of negatives doesn't necessarily mean the attorney isn't isn't a qualified professional. It can just be people that thought that they should have got a whole lot more in something and didn't end up getting it. So, but look for patterns. Does the attorney communicate with them? Are people saying, "Well, I call the office," or my attorney has ghosted me? Those are big red flags, I think.
Another thing I want to talk to you about too is also most of us who have gone through divorce, especially at the beginning, we're pretty naive to think everything's going to be fair.
Yeah.
Right. And I had that too. Well, everything's going to be fair
Right.
because that's how it's going to be. And so
Right.
I want you to talk a bit about that because I think for people that have been post and we've been in the field for a while, we know there's no fair. So if you want to talk about that a bit, I think people have to have a bit of reality check of what it actually happens and what it's like.
Right. And thank you for saying that, Karen. So, my best analogy with this is fairness is in the eye of the beholder. There's no arbitrary fairness. And yes, there are family codes. And depending on where you live, there may be specific requirements for how the distribution of the marital assets will work. I'm a Canadian, but I live in Texas, and Texas is what's called a community property state, which means it should just be everything that you ever accumulated from the time that you got married till the time you got divorced is a 50-50 split. But even that isn't that clear because, if I owned the house before we got married, but then my partner contributed to the mortgage or contributed to home improvements, they still are not going to get 50% of that house there. And they may not even get 50% of what they put into the house. So it is all based on what you can negotiate in mediation, or if you go in front of a judge. I'm going to say this from the bottom of my heart. It is a roll of the dice. It's a complete crapshoot. What is going to happen? And judges are humans. They can, yes, justice is supposed to be blind. Unfortunately, we're human beings. And so a judge can be swayed by the last case that they heard. And in family court, it's not like on TV. You might get 10 or 15 minutes and that's it. Your case is decided unless it's a very complicated case. So, and you probably will not directly testify to anything. It'll just be your attorneys talking. So it just depends on the case and the situation, but definitely fair. Fair is a perspective that you hold, and what's fair to you is not likely to be fair to your soon to be ex-partner, and it's probably not what the court considers as fair either. So this is why I say mediation, where you can explain and you can take the time to look at the financial picture. Okay, if I decide this, then this is the long-term tax implications and retirement planning implications. Whereas if you don't do that and you just accept what a divorce attorney or financial person tells you and you don't do that work, you're not going to get a fair settlement in your eyes of fairness. I don't know. That was a long-winded answer.
No, it was great. It was great. I was thinking so many things, but that kind of goes into the nice trap, right? Where we're
Yes.
always so nice, like, and that can be both men and women that are just, my partner just gave her everything, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
Because and so I'm saying, so we can have that nice trap. I don't know if you want to talk about that, because that's a trap that a lot of us have fallen into, where it's like, okay, well, let's just be kind.
Yeah.
And we're kind of over giving instead
Yes.
of being somewhat negotiating fairness, as I say.
Right. Right. And so I do think that niceness trap cuts both ways. Like you said, people can get caught up into, I'll give you too much. And when there's kids involved, I think that even though you may be overgiving, if it's overgiving in the area that's going to support your children, I think that's actually sort of a blessing for everybody involved, because your kids are going to be well cared for. If you trust the other parent that they're going to financially be responsible with that money, I think that's a really positive thing. Uh, it may mean you struggle a little bit to get back on your feet after the divorce. But again, depending on your age and your income and your earning potential, maybe you're like, well, a few months of struggling is worth my kids being able to stay in the family home and my spouse not having to worry about making a mortgage payment. I mean, that's the kind of divorces that I rarely see because these people are pretty amicable about things. The flip side though is saying, and I don't know if it's a niceness thing or if it's a I'm not worthy of asking for more thing. And I see that a lot where there's been coercive control, emotional abuse, or financial abuse, which is where you just literally don't know what the financial picture is in the relationship. That's one of the reasons pulled out of family and divorce mediation and went to divorce coaching, because I saw too many people sit at that table and you could tell they didn't know the numbers, they didn't know what they were looking at, they weren't represented. And as the mediator, I'm a total neutral in the room. I can't say, hey, this is a bad deal, you need to take a look at this. And that got really frustrating for me. So I just stay out of the family and divorce mediation right now. But I do think you can also overgive, like you said, in the fact that you leave too much on the table, a lot of times because you just don't think that either you deserve it, or that I think sometimes people are afraid to ask because they're like, okay, I've got this little bit. I'm afraid to ask for more because what if they now tell me, well, you can't even have that little bit that we had already settled on. And so I think there's all kinds of pressure that can come in when those factors are present.
Yeah, because divorce is overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
You get divorced. And I was talking to a psychologist not a while back, and she's like, all divorce is trauma. Like it's
It is.
all trauma. Like when you're in coercive control, like I was, it was a lot more trauma because I had trauma. I had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. But regardless, who's ever listening, any divorce you're going to go through, whether it's amicable or not amicable, there's a trauma piece with that. And it's just because everything in the foundation's just gone poof, right? And
Right.
you're rebuilding. Um, I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between you were left or you left. Do you
Right.
find there's differences in how you coach them and how to coach them and what they should know the differences between the two?
So this is a really interesting dynamic, and I don't get asked this, Karen. So thank you for that question. I was a person who left my first spouse, and initially when I did it, it felt like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm, not happy in the relationship. It wasn't a horrible thing. There wasn't, the level of abuse that there wasn't a level of abuse. It was just a disagreement, just kind of quickly dissolved. We should have stayed friends. We should have probably never got married. But anyhow, this is what happened. And then about 5 years in, I wanted out of the relationship. Now, once I filed for the divorce, this was 30 years ago, I went and got an attorney. And that's when all the, pardon my language, crap got started. And things went south badly after that. So that's my experience. And I try not to transfer that to what my clients are going to experience, but it does. And that's why I talked about not lawyering up at the very beginning. But when you leave, quite often you feel very assured, very confident. Quite often your friends tell you that's a good job. If you're not happy, you need to get out. And then it's like the guilt and the sense of, did I really do everything I could have, or did I just push the easy button to get out of this relationship? So that's the kind of sneaky side that comes up. That's the emotional sneaky side that comes up. And that's sometimes where I think you get into the overgiving in the mediation, because like, I'm trying to compensate for what I've done to you. And so here you go. Here's an extra whatever at the table, kind of almost like a bribe that, hey, I'm sorry, or a gift. So there's that. If you are left in the relationship, I think there's this huge sense of betrayal, and there's this huge sense of how much of this whole relationship was a lie, especially I believe if the leaving was because of a new relationship. Or I've had clients who have been married for years or decades, and their partner not only leaves them, but then moves into maybe a same sex relationship. And then that can really rock people's understand, like they don't trust themselves anymore. How could I have not noticed my spouse was gay, lesbian, bisexual, whatever, whatever the designation or the term or the reality is. And that can almost be it goes to, can I trust myself? Like how far off was I on understanding this person when this happened? Whether it's whoever they leave for, there can be that rocking of the world. But what happens with both of those people, I think, by the time they get closer to the divorce or after the divorce, even if you asked for the divorce, there is this profound sense of grief, or what I call the kind of the emotional void after the divorce, where you just feel empty. There's something missing. There's a piece of your life that's not there anymore. And so I think that at some point in time, both of those very diverse ways of getting out of a relationship boil down to that after the process grief.
I also want to mention too that for people that have left, and I was I was a lefter too. It's not lefter, but anyways, the ones that left, I had been planning quite a long time,
Mm-hmm.
so I was also quite ready to do this, like to pull the plug, or
Yeah.
And for those who were not, as you said, they were in shock. So I also want to mention to people, maybe give some for the ones that were left, like that decide to leave. Give pause for the ones that you left, because they have to catch up, right?
Yes.
Right? They have to take a breath, because it's like, wow, their whole world that they thought has been upset. And you are going, well, some of you have been planning this for a while.
Yeah.
So that's just
Yes.
something I want to add.
And anger is quite often the first response that you
Mhm.
see from those people. And that makes sense, right? Because they're angry. I mean, and it's, that, what is it? Men are from Mars, women from Venus. It really is, where I talk to women who have been saying, I told my husband, I've been talking to my husband for the last 2 years that I'm not happy. And the husband goes, I had no idea there was a problem. This came out of the blue to me. And I've talked with divorce coaches who work exclusively with men, and they say that all the time. And I'm like, wow, because my clients typically say this was not a last minute decision. This was, like you said, I mean, I think I was probably a good, if not 12, if not a year, probably 18 months that I really seriously knew that I was going to leave if something didn't change. And so you're right. I think that's an interesting dynamic as well.
It's also good that you brought that up, because for me, a lot of I get referrals from you guys type of people, and I'm getting a lot of men,
Yeah.
because they're, like you're saying, they are just, I have to work with them a few sessions of the heavy grief they're carrying, because they're
Yeah.
like, what happened? Right. So we have to
Yes.
work through that. And that is something that, women tend to do better anyways in the grief, because we do tend to get the support systems and stuff.
Right.
I also want to talk to you about, everyone needs to know that when you go through divorce, it's a business. Do you want to talk about a bit about that?
Um, if you can, think of your divorce as a partnership in a business that is dividing. If you can, and you cannot ever remove the emotions from divorce decisions. And that's why I think working with somebody, whether it's a divorce coach, whether it's a therapist that's informed on the divorce process, probably not your divorce attorney, because those are going to be usually your highest paid professionals. You do not want to use them as your brainstorming buddy. Or even if you've got a trusted friend that is going to hold space for you, so they don't advise you, or they don't tell you what to do, or they don't egg you on, but they just listen to your information and what you're sharing and your ideas. If you can negotiate or prepare for negotiations, and whether that negotiation is talking to your soon to be ex partner, or whether it's talking to your attorney, or whether it's actually preparing for mediation, if you can look at this as a business decision, and the best way to do that is, and I do a lot of work with my clients getting prepared for mediation. What is your bottom offer that you're willing to accept? What do you absolutely need out of this relationship so that you can move forward with the life that you want to live, whatever that looks like? What is the bottom? And then what is the best possible offer you could look for? Like, what if they gave you everything you wanted, what would that look like? And then when you're in the negotiation, if you hear a proposal that falls somewhere in between those two, you're on the right track. And that if you accepted that, you would be in a good space. Even if it may have not everything that you wanted in. And if you're not able to at least get rid of that emotion that I really need this pen in the divorce. And I know that sounds crazy, but I sat as a mediator one time and we divided, I would say it was probably about a $2 million like asset bundle of assets that we had to divide. And these were not, these were not super affluent people, but they had received some inheritance and some property and all kinds of stuff. And anyhow, and we came down to everything was divided except for this silver coffee urn. I will never forget this silver coffee urn that was given to them as a wedding gift. And no, I'm sorry. It was a silver wedding urn that they had, or coffee urn that they had bought on their honeymoon and with money from a wedding gift. And they both would not let go of, I need that urn or that coffee urn. And as the mediator, I asked them, how often do you use this urn? And you want to know what? Neither one of them had ever used it. It was just kind of sitting in a cupboard at their home. And that was the emotional thing that they had both anchored in on. If one of them had just said, go ahead, take it, the whole thing could have been settled. And it wasn't. They refused to back down off of that position. And it can be an object. It can be, now I know pets have a special place in our heart, but pets sometimes become the sticking point in the mediation, that emotional connection. And I get all of that, but it's going to drive up the cost of your divorce. It's going to increase the conflict, and it's going to create more challenges in rebuilding whatever your relationship is going to look like post-divorce. Again, if you've got kids, that's something you really need to be focused on.
Well, let's just talk about the kids quick, right? So what are your good co-parenting plans, good co-parenting arrangements? What are your tip about that? Because that is, for me, when I was going through it, one of the biggest worries, right,
Yes.
is the children. And I am from a divorced family. I did not want my kids to go through this. I didn't want them to have this type of life, but this is what it is. So what are some good tips, Marty, for those people that are going to be co-parents?
So there's a lot of information online now about what makes a good co-parenting plan. So do your research, get online. Different states and areas have, a basic template of what a co-parenting plan should look like. And the more details that you build into your co-parenting plan, the better off you're going to be long term. So I have seen co-parenting plans that are that boilerplate language, that it's just kind of a fill in the blanks that you just go through and do that. If you have if you got a 2-year-old child and you got a 3-page co-parenting plan, you have got a problem, because it's just not comprehensive enough. And you can build anything you want into that co-parenting plan. I have lots. I've personally worked on co-parenting plans where people have agreed to set aside a monthly amount for a college education for a child who's maybe 2 or 3 while we're doing the mediation, who have agreed to set aside who's going to purchase the vehicle for the child, and they've started accounts to do that. You can be as detailed in that co-parenting plan as you want. And they always say the devil is in the details. I'm going to say the devil is in the details you leave out of your co-parenting plan when it comes to this, because co-parenting plans are one of the biggest reasons why there are constant returns to court post-divorce. Because unfortunately, just because you file divorce and you get that signed, sealed, and delivered divorce decree does not mean you're not going to see a courtroom again, especially if you've got kids. So make sure that you are very clear. Who can have access to the kids? Do you both have to agree on who the babysitters are? Can a new partner or new girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever both of you may be involved with, can they take care of the kids? Or does it have to be the biological parent that's there? When do new partners get introduced to the children, and when do new partners get introduced to the exes? Like, all of this stuff can be detailed and printed in there. And if you are able to agree on that, it's less likely that you're going to fight about it later. So make sure that co-parenting plan is as detailed as possible. And if you can even create an idea of what your co-parenting plan should look like, and then you can talk about it before you get to mediation. Quite often, the co-parenting plan, if both parents focus on the kids, is going to be the easiest piece of that to do. And then the financials tend to fall into place once the co-parenting plan is done.
So one of the common mistakes then is it's not detailed enough.
Yes, it's very general. And so I actually had a client who said, "I'm not worried about my co-parenting plan. I'm going to go to Claude or Chat GPT or whatever they were using." And they said, "I'm going to do it on social on the AI system." And I said, "Well, that's great, and it's going to be worth every penny you spent on it because it's not going to. It might hit on the general issues, and that's great, but it's not going to include the specifics because every family looks different. If you've got a spouse that works on call, if you've got a person that works shift work, that's got to be accommodated in the co-parenting plan. First, third, and fifth weekends and every other Wednesday or whatever the standard is in your area is not going to cut it for those families."
Would you recommend that they revisit that? Like, so say they have young kids. Like when my mom and dad got divorced, I was 6 months old and my sister was 4. Now that's in the 70s, so we can't, but
Yeah.
if you have clients like that, or if my listeners are like that, would you recommend that in 5 years or 10 years, they revisit the co-parenting plan?
I do. I actually encourage my clients, if again, I tend to work with the high conflict people who aren't going to be able to go out and have a cup of coffee or a dinner and review the co-parenting plan together. Still, it's worthwhile to get on a call or get on a Zoom or whatever you're going to do. And I think every year it's not a bad idea, especially if you're noticing, kids up to the age of 12 are going to be fairly good with going back and forth between two homes. I think that can be a very positive experience for children if it's done correctly. Um, but then once they start getting 13, 14 and older, they maybe don't want to spend weekends with either parent. They want to be going to friends' houses and doing sleepovers, and they want to be doing this, and they got sports and they got things. And so I really think that as your kids get older, it may make sense for the kids to have a little more control over where they're, not control over where they're going, control in giving their voice as to, okay, I really need some time. I know it's my weekend with mom, but I really want to do this activity. And then the children don't ever get to determine it, but then it's up to the parents to decide how are we going to accommodate this. And I think if you can sit down once a year and just go over it, if you can agree on changes, you don't have to go any further. You can just say, yes, we both agree. I would recommend getting it in writing. Just follow up with an email and say, this is what I recall we agreed on our call, and just list it. And then say, can you let me know if this is right? And keep it in writing because it is helpful. Verbal agreements are hard to enforce and harder to bring to court. So do that little due diligence follow up there. And that's as far as you have to go. If you hit a point where you can't go any further, you're both very much, or you're not quite in agreement, then book a mediation. Hire a mediator for an hour, 2 hours, sit down, get them to formalize it or memorialize it in a settlement agreement or a memorandum of understanding. And then you both have clarity over it. Again, I would suggest not hitting the lawyering up button right off the bat. Try whatever you can to do that yourself.
Okay, so one question I just want to, before we wrap it up, is when you're dealing with more of a high conflict, what is the one thing you want to say to the people that are listening? If you have a partner that is showing patterns of difficult, antagonistic type of behavior,
Right.
what is something they should do, not do? If we're going to talk about mistakes today, but what is something that you think that they should know or not do or do?
Okay. So this is what I always tell. This is what I always tell people who are dealing with this. And I find, because I work mostly with women, but I see men do this as well. I do have some male clients. Please don't think that just because you're going through a divorce, a person who has been high conflict or toxic or unhealthy as a partner is suddenly going to change and become fair and giving and willing to listen to your concerns. Just let's just get that one out of the way. That's not going to happen. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have not seen it happen. I'm sure there's a case where it has, but I haven't seen it. And if it does, if they all of a sudden start becoming very reasonable, really look at what you're proposing, because you probably are not asking for everything that you're entitled to. That's my take on these people. They're very manipulative with that kind of behavior. So that's the first one. They're never going to change. So anticipate, plan, and keep being true to your own values. If you value honesty and transparency and respecting people and respecting the process, don't stoop to their level. Hire an attorney that is aligned with that value. Hire your divorce professionals, your team that's aligned with that value, and hold your head up high and go through this true to yourself, because that way you're going to come through this stronger, better. You may not end up coming out of it unscathed. I'm sorry. I wish I could say that. But again, if you have a team around you and you've got support, that's going to be a big step in helping you come out the other side and have that foundational starting point that you can move forward with your life.
Yeah, I think if you're dealing with antagonistic personalities, as you said, the better team you have. Some can be paid, some can be your friends that you can count on,
Yeah.
a family. That's essential, because these guys or gals, whatever, can be exhausting. So you need it. You need some type of team there. So
Yes. Yeah. And they count on wearing you down, and they
yep.
count on, you know, unlimited legal motions and court maneuvers and weird stuff that happens. And here's the thing, they typically hire an attorney that's got the same characteristics. It's more than happy to file all these lawsuits because again, it's money, right? It's billable hours. So just anticipate that old saying, gird your loins because it's coming. Winter is
Mhm.
coming, right? Game of Thrones. It really is going to be it's going to be an experience. But you too can get through this, and you've got the internal strength. You just got to tap into it.
One more thing. Let's just a little talk about recovery, because that is, we talk about, there's a lot of talk about, oh, we're starting over from scratch. We're starting over. Are we really starting over? Like I listen to all this on social media and stuff, and I go, I don't know if I'm really starting over. I think I'm actually wiser. Like I
You
think I'm, yeah, do you know what I mean, Marty?
Yes, and I always when I hear people starting over, I always think when I was a kid, we used to play this game. We called it snakes and ladders, but I think a lot of people call it chutes and ladders. You know, where you go up, and
Mhm.
if you land on a chute, you go all the way back down. That's not what divorce is. You don't hit a chute in divorce and go all the way back to square one. You are so much wiser and more experienced. You've dealt with challenges. You've been resilient. If you have been in a toxic relationship, you have done amazing and courageous things just to get to where you are, to survive it, and then to have the courage to go and divorce this person when you know what you're likely facing. That takes a huge amount of courage. So what I say to people is, don't even think about starting over. You don't want to go back to that 20-year-old that got into this relationship in the first place. Would you want to go back there? No. You want to be this wiser person that you are now. So let's look at what is it that makes you such a strong person that you were able to do all these things in your life? And then let's use that now as your square one, and let's keep building up. Your square one is not the one that was back here when you were 20. It's where you are now, which is you're thinking of a mountain. You're halfway to 3/4 up the top of that mountain. Don't go back down to the base of the mountain. Start from where you are, because your experience is going to count both in your professional life and in your personal life.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that needs to be talked about more. To
Yeah,
be
I
honest
don't
with
like
you.
that idea of starting over. Maybe reinventing or maybe up leveling. Yeah, I like those words as opposed to starting over.
So I ask everyone who comes on the podcast this last question. For someone who's just separated, whether they left or were left, what advice would you give them to help them navigate those overwhelming early days?
Get a team together as quickly as possible. And I think, Karen, you said it very well. A team doesn't have to be paid professionals. It can be, friends and family members that you trust. And that team needs to be small. It doesn't need to be like 20, 30 people. It needs to be 3 or 4. And ideally, you want to make sure that your team includes at least one professional that is aware of the general legal process, and one team member that can help you with finances. And I really encourage, unless you have a CDFA or a CFA in your family, or you have a divorce professional, those should be your outside people. but get that team in place, because sometimes the first mistakes you make are the most costly. Hiring the wrong attorney, you know, sometimes it's something as simple as, you know, moving out of the house and stop making the mortgage payment. You can find yourself in a lot of legal problems over this. And it may be very well intentioned that a friend or family member said, this is what you should do. They don't really know the law and the long term implications of it. So, but that would be my advice. Don't try to go it alone. Because if you do and you make those costly errors, it sometimes not only costs you a lot there, but it's going to double the costs to get restarted and on the right track again.
Great answer. So you have the D Shift podcast, which is great, and your books. And if you want to talk about the books and whereabouts they can get in touch with you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thank you for that, Karen. I have 2 books out right now and a third one on the way. The first book I wrote myself. It's called From I Do to I'm Done, A Woman's Guide to Preparing for Divorce. So we go over a lot of the stuff that we talked about. The second one is a collaboration book with 17 other women, and it was called Breakups to Breakthroughs. The Other Side of Divorce, Breakups That Led to Breakthroughs. Sorry, I can't even remember the title of my own book. And it's a collaborative book about women who went through divorce. Some left, some were left, and how they rebuilt their life. And it's just, I just found their stories were really inspiring. So put that together. They're both available on Amazon. And the third book, it's on the way, is going to be about how to make conversations more positive, even in high conflict situations in business and professional life. So, or business and personal life. So that one's on the way.
Well, with all your experience in mediation and all this, all what you've done, no wonder why. I mean, these sound all really great books. So what a great podcast today. I think if I had been able to listen to you like 8 years ago when I was going through this, it would have helped save me a lot of time, a lot of energy, and less exhaustion. So, Mardi, you're great for our group of people in the divorce professional world. And so I'm honored and grateful that you came on the podcast today with all your
Thank,
wisdom.
thank you, Karen. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for all you do as well.
Thank you. Thanks for joining today's conversation with our divorce expert. Check out the show notes for more about our guests, and don't forget to follow us on Spotify and our YouTube channel at divorceworkshop.ca. We'd love to hear from you. Share your questions, comments, or guest suggestions. And for a complete guide to navigating separation divorce, check out the Just Separated workbook on Amazon. It covers emotions, co-parenting, finances, legal insights, and recovery. A must-have for anyone going through separation or divorce.